Chapter 20 Quicksilver Sea. Glissa beckoned Brenna to the door. Aerophins, she said. Lots of them. And my friends are missing. We're on our own. Why didn't you sense them? I don't know. Brenna paced back and forth, her eyebrows furrowed. You can sense their mana build up. They have to charge their attack before releasing the lightning. That's why it takes so long between blasts. Someone's figured out you can sense that, so the aerophins haven't charged up yet. Then why are they hovering out? Why not attack? They have us trapped in here. Both women stared at each other. Because they have us trapped in here, said Glissa slowly. Brenna nodded. They're holding us here until someone else, or something, arrives. We have to get away from here. Any suggestions? Run. That's your plan? Look, it will take the aerophins time to charge their attack. That gets us out the door. I'll slow them down with a gust of wind, and we run. Glissa shook her head. They follow us wherever we run. Where do we go? I don't know, said the human mage. Away from town, into the mountains, anywhere. Staying here is suicide and puts my people at risk. Fine, you're right, Glissa nodded. We'll run into the mountains. That's the most likely place to find my friends, anyway. Maybe I can destroy some of the beasts. I've done it before. How do you do that? Asked Brenna. I have no idea, said Glissa as she moved back towards the door. It just happened. You might have to die first, though. Ready? Brenna walked to the door, crossed her arms in front of her, and nodded. Glissa pulled the door open, and the mage flung her arms wide. Glissa felt a blast of wind whip by her. The door flame rattled from the force. Brenna ran out of the door, and the elf followed. The aerophins scattered, tumbling in the sudden wind. Brenna ran across the shore, Glissa beside her, glancing back to keep an eye on the pursuers. Two of the aerophins crashed into the sea. The quicksilver was thick and buoyant. The aerophins didn't sink, but they couldn't pull themselves free, either. Behind one of the aerophins, a sleek neck broke the surface of the quicksilver with hardly a ripple. It looked like a giant serpent. Its head snaked 5 feet into the air and opened its jaws wide, revealing rows of shiny teeth, then slammed back into the sea, snapping its mouth shut on the tail of the silver creature. The predator disappeared under the surface. As they cleared the dock area, Glissa heard screams from the village. Young children ran screaming through the streets while adults tried to catch and calm them down. A little boy ran towards Glissa crying, followed by a grey-haired man. Riley, come back here, it's not safe, shouted the man. Get indoors, shouted Glissa as she ran on. Hurry! She doubled her pace. The man caught Riley at the shore just as the aerophins roared over their heads. We have to get away from town. Then we'll just head towards the mountains. There's not much cover in the valley. I'm counting on you to tell me when to dodge. Great, said Glissa. She felt a familiar tingling sensation. Now would be a good time. They're charging. Brenna broke away from the sea's edge and could dive to the ground. Glissa thought about plunging into the quicksilver, but then remembered the sea serpent. The aerophins held their charge. Either they had gotten smarter or something was controlling them. Glissa's foot slipped into the quicksilver and slid out from under her. She landed flat on her face, an easy target. The aerophins were almost on top of her. She rolled back away from the sea and went for her sword. They came in fast and low, their globes glowing and crackling with lightning. She had nowhere to go. Lightning streaked over Glissa's head and slammed into the dirt and quicksilver around her. Glissa glanced around, looking for Brenna to thank her for blasting the aerophins. Instead, she saw a human boat speed through the flock. Slowbad stood at the front of the boat, staring intently at the board in front of him, with Bosch right behind him. As the boat sailed through the low-flying aerophins, Bosch swatted at the silver birds, knocking 2 into the sea with a single swing of his large iron hand. The rest of the flock flew up into the sky. Glissa scrambled to her feet and ran after the boat, hoping the goblin would turn it before the aerophins returned. Brenna ran over. What was that? She asked. My friends, come on. The two ran back towards the docks, following the boat. Slowbad was not completely in control, and it swerved back and forth next to the shore. The little boy Riley screamed as the boat sped towards them. The old man grabbed the boy and dived out the way. Slowbad veered away from the shore and skidded sideways into the docks. Gussa glanced behind her. The remaining Aerophans had regrouped. "Get inside," she shouted at the old man. "It's not safe out here." The old man stared at her, shaking. Gussa sprinted for the boat. She heard Brenna behind her. "It's all right, Gerald. She's a friend, I think. Get your grandson to safety." "Hurry up," shouted Glyssa. The tingling began on her neck. "We're out of time." The elf took 2 steps into the sea. The quicksilver pulled at her feet. She stretched her arms out to grasp the side of the boat and missed. Her fingertips scraped the iron tube on the side as she saw the quicksilver coming up towards her face. A hand shot out of the boat and grabbed her wrist. Bosch pulled on Glyssa's arm, but her momentum carried her to the side of the boat. Her stomach slammed into a rusty tube and knocked the wind from her. Bosch pulled Glyssa into the boat and dropped her onto the leather deck. She curled up into a ball and wrapped her arms around her stomach. Glyssa fought for breath so she could speak. "Protect Bruenna," she gasped. "I have her," said the goblin. "Slowbad, go," Glyssa wheezed. She heard the wings of the approaching Aerophans. She tried to stand, but she was thrown to the deck as the boat lurched away from the dock. Glyssa looked up to see Bruenna waved her arms at the beast. Her ears popped as the wind rushed from Bruenna's hands above her. "Did it work?" she asked the elf. She pushed herself back up again. Her gut hurt and she had trouble balancing on the moving boat. Bruenna shook her head. "Most of them dived under the gust. Slowed them down, but they're still coming." Glyssa saw the Aerophans behind them, skating just above the sea. "I have an idea. Blast them again, but aim at the quicksilver. Do it quick, my neck is tingling." Bruenna tossed her hands out and spread her fingers wide. Glyssa watched the energy leap from her hands as the mage released a blast of air. The wind hit the sea and sent a wave of quicksilver up into the air behind the boat. "Pour it on," called Glyssa. Bruenna fed more and more mana into the winds. The wave grew and spread away from the boat. The Aerophans tried to rise above the incoming wave but couldn't climb fast enough. The quicksilver wave slammed into the flock, engulfing the lead birds before they could get out of the path. One by one, the Aerophans disappeared into the receding wave until only 2 were left. They rose up and away from the sea and sped towards the boat. "Can this thing go any faster?" "Don't ask me, huh? I just learned to work it," grumbled Slowbad. "I can get more speed from it," said Bruenna. She walked to the front of the boat, hooking her feet under an iron tube that ran the length of the leather deck as she moved. She pushed the goblin from the way. Glyssa saw 2 more of the iron tubes sticking up from the deck at the front of the boat, bent in towards one another, about level with the goblin's head. Between them sat a large ball of quicksilver. Bruenna summoned mana into her palm and grabbed the ball. The boat lurched forward again, much faster than before. Glyssa hooked 1 foot under the iron rail and grabbed Bosch to steady herself. Slowbad, with nothing to hold on to, slid towards the back of the boat. Glyssa stuck out her free foot and caught the goblin as he went past. "You might want to stay low. I'm going to try and lose them in the Crystal Islands." Glyssa reached down and pulled Slowbad over to the footwell. The goblin grabbed onto the iron tube with both hands. His little body bounced up and down on the leather deck as the boat spread across the quicksilver. Glyssa bent down into a crouch and grabbed the iron tube, ready to steady herself. She glanced back to check on the Aerophans. Twin gusts of wind sprayed out the end of the iron pontoons that supported the leather deck. The quicksilver sprayed into the air behind them as the boat skipped across the sea. The Aerophans dropped back behind the spray but kept pace with the speeding boat. Glyssa had no idea how fast they were going, but since Bruenna had taken control of the ship, the shoreline had disappeared. The boat swerved violently to the left, and Glyssa snapped her attention forward again. They were coming up fast on the Crystal Islands, which looked more like towers than islands, giant silver spires flowing from the sea. The islands twisted and snaked their way into the sky, like the quicksilver serpent Glyssa had seen earlier. There was a group of 10 ahead, but Glyssa saw more dotting the area in the distance. The towers were mesmerizing. They looked like crystallized quicksilver. The light of the two moons in the sky reflected off the spires as well as the surface of the water, turning the air between the islands into a cascade of colour. They whipped around the first island, skimming between two silver buttresses that curved down from the tower above them. Gussa looked as they sped underneath. Dozens of rounded, interconnected towers jutted from the spire above. Two silver bridges connected this tower with the two nearest islands in the group. Gussa thought she could see people on the bridges and terraces as they sped towards the next island, but she couldn't be sure. They were too high, and the boat was moving too fast. Rowena swerved sharply around the next island and continued through the chain. Gussa noticed an opening in the base of the island large enough for the boat to enter. She peered inside as they sped past and saw a glittering cave with a number of human boats moored within. "Can we hide in one of those caves?" shouted Glycer as they raced towards the next island. The airthings swung wide around the silver spire, but they were still close behind. "Maybe if we can lose them. If they follow us in, we'll be trapped." Glycer pushed her hair from her eyes. "Slow down," she shouted. "Are you crazy? They're charged and ready to attack us. If they get close enough, one bolt of lightning could sink us." "Just a little closer. Lure them in, then accelerate into the next cave. They can't turn as tight as you can. Trust me, this will work." Verena shook her head. "Sounds crazy." "Crazy what she do best," called Slowbad from where he clung onto Gus's leg. Verena moved her hand back to the Quicksilver control orb, and the boat slowed. Gussa kept an eye on the Aerophans as they sped towards the next island, looming closer and closer. The tingle on the back of Gus's neck returned. They would fire any second, but the island was still some distance ahead. "Full speed! They're close enough!" Verena rolled her hand on the orb, and the boat lurched forward. The Aerophans were still gaining slightly, but hadn't attacked yet. "Cut as close as you can to the side of the cave." Verena maneuvered the boat around the crystal island, which still had a single spire growing straight out of the water. As they sped around to the other side, Gussa saw a silver arch curving out from the tower into the sea ahead of them. Verena twisted the boat to the right, just missing the arch as they skidded into the cave. The first aerophane slammed into the leg of the arch, exploding and sending debris into the sea. The second made the turn, but its momentum propelled it straight to the far side of the cave. "Everybody down!" cried Gussa. She dropped to the deck right as the aerophane slammed into the cave wall and exploded in a shower of electricity and glass. When the elf looked again, the boat was still speeding through the cave, heading straight for a row of docked boats. "Rowena!" she screamed. The mage stood and slapped her hand back on the Quicksilver control. The boat slowed down, but Gussa could tell it wasn't going to be enough. Rowena twisted her hand and the boat slid sideways. They came to a stop, bumping the last two boats in the line. "She learned that from me, huh? I did that first, huh? Remember, I did that at Docks." Gussa ignored the goblin. "Is everything okay?" Slowbad and Bosch nodded. Verona looked concerned. "What's wrong?" "I'm fine, but we're not safe. The Vidalcan will send someone down here to investigate those explosions." "Is there somewhere safe that we can go?" "We need to finish our talk." "Yes, we do. Before I agree to do anything else for you, I'd like to know who you are and what trouble you've brought to my people." "So," said Gussa, tapping her feet on the leather deck, "where can we go?" "I know a place," said the mage. Verena made her way through the islands in the chain and sailed to the middle of the sea. Gussa watched behind to make sure nobody followed. While the human piloted the boat towards a set of distant spires, Gussa told Verena of her adventures, starting with the death of her parents and ending with Kane's death and the description of the four-armed mage who had killed him. She left out references of the goblin cult and the inner world. After a while, they came upon a lone island jutting from the sea, near the intersection of the mountain and the Mephedros haze. The island was a simple spire that corkscrewed up from the sea. Gussa noticed that it did not glitter like the towers of crystal on the island chain. In fact, the silver spire looked almost dirty. "The Vidalcan abandoned this island long ago," explained Verona as she guided the boat into the cave at its base. "It was too close to the Mephedros, and it was being infected by the nitrogen mists. The green haze hanging over the dross. We should be safe here." The cave seemed to take up the entire base of the spire. A central stairway spiraled up from the landing in the center. They docked at the far side of the landing so the stairs blocked the boat from view, then ascended the spire. The interior of the crystal isle was dull and greasy from the nitrogen, but still fascinated Gussa. Light from the moons came through the walls, but the walls bent the light in odd ways, stretching and distorting the world outside. If she stared at it too long, her eyes burned and her head began to hurt.
Would we not be more secure near the boat? Asked Bosch.
Verona stared at the golem. It talks? She asked. Gussa smiled. I forgot to mention that, she said. Sorry.
You have some strange servants,
Verona grunted. They aren't servants, they are my friends.
Thank you, Glissa, said Bosch.
Verona stared at Glissa and shrugged.
We're going up one of the terraces. We'll be able to see anyone coming from there.
They emerged onto the terrace that completely encircled the spire. Bosch and Slowbad patrolled it while Bruenna and Glissa continued their talk. You were right. The mage who killed your friend was a Vidalcan. Why did they hunt you?
I've never seen so many aerophans used against a single person before.
I don't know. I was rather hoping you would help me find out.
Why should I help you? I brought you this far to get you away from my village. If I help you further, the synod would order the destruction of my town.
Gus sighed. Look, you don't have to trust me, and I don't trust you. But I have no choice. The Vidalcan want me dead, and I need your help. But I have no choice. The Vidalcan want me dead, and I need your help. Just give me some information, and you can walk away if you want. What is this synod?
The synod is the ruling council of the Vidalcan, replied Verona. If they find you, they will know I helped you. It must be a member of the synod after you. Only they have access to any Verifens.
Then help me defeat them so they don't find out, pleaded Gussa. Look, they've already attacked my people twice. If I don't stop at this, a lot more people will die, including the people of your village. Help me and I'll try and stop that.
With what? With what?
A rusty construct and a filthy goblin, asked Verona. Fine, don't help us. Take us back to land and we'll find another way. Gussa turned and stared out over the vast expanse of the Quicksilver Sea. You can go back to your forced servitude to the Vidalcan. Just tell me one thing. Where do you work for them? You humans seem fairly intelligent race. You have magical powers. Why not work for yourselves?
That is exactly what my father said. They killed him for it, said Verona.
What happened? Asked Gussa. Verona stared off into the gentle, rippling sea.
We used to be like other human settlements. We worked with the Vidalcan, or at least we thought we did. But our lives never improved. They kept everything we helped to create. My father had enough. His life work was incomplete, and those bastards in the synod stole it from him. He led our town into a revolt against the Vidalcan. We refused to work for them anymore. That's why they sent the Aerophans. 50 of them. Those silver assassins ravaged the town and killed anyone who dared to fight back. So yes, we will still work for the Vidalcan.
But we have no illusions as to our role anymore.
We are their slaves, and nothing we can do can change that.
I can, said Gussa.
How?
I have the power. I don't understand it yet, but I can destroy the Aerophans. With your help, I can learn to control it. If you help me, I will protect your village.
I don't know, said Verona. She wiped her eyes to her sleeves. We've lived in peace with the Vidalcan for almost 30 cycles.
You mean you've lived in slavery? What would your father do? Verona stared at Gussa for a long moment. Tears streamed down her face. At last she asked,
What do you need?